In this video, I'm going to show you how to make Jayne's toque from Firefly. Or for those of you who haven't seen Firefly, a toque with ear flaps that is 3 different colors of orange and has a pom-pom. You can make this toque out of any color you wish, but I'm going to show you how I made it with these particular colors. To make Jayne's toque, you are going to need 3 different colors: dark orange, lighter orange, and a dark yellow. You're also going to need straight knitting needles, circular knitting needles, and double pointed knitting needles. I also strongly recommend that you also have a crochet hook handy, because a lot of this toque was finished with a crochet hook, as well as, always, scissors. So I've already knit one of the ear flaps to show you what it's going to look like, done with knitting needles that are 8 millimeters wide, and when it's done, it'll be at 21. So there's 21 stitches at the top here. If you recall from our earlier video how to do that, but I'll just show you real quick again. So you cast on 3, 2, 3, and then then you knit it. So you still have 3 stitches there. And then on the purl side is where you do your additions. So you purl 1, and then you add 1 by doing that loop. And then just before the last loop, you add another 1. So now we have 5. This always has to be an uneven number. That's the best way for you to recall if you did it right or not. I mean, you can do your own when it's not this particular ear flap one that starts with an even number. It's just easier on you if you go with uneven numbers. Right, so we knit this side. Be real careful in getting that to knit it. There you go. Knit. Again, careful with the added loop. And then around the back. Now we're doing purl. We're going to add 2 to make it 7. So purl. And then adding your loop. We keep knitting until there's only 1 more stitch left on the needle, and then you make your added addition loop. Now we have 7. So continue on with your stitching until you have 21 stitches on the needle. Now that you've got both your ear flaps done, and both of them are 21 stitches wide, put them on both on one needle, one of your straight needles, and make sure that the loose end is going to the left, towards the end of the needle. This is very important for actually creating the circular bit of the toque later on. So, take your circular needles, which are 2 needles attached with a plastic cord. You cast on 3. And then you knit the orange to the red on the circular needles. And then to one of the red on circular needles. Then you cast on 10. You knit the other one to it. And then you cast on 6. And that's the first step of putting it all together. So, got your 3. Now, you grab this and just plain old knit. You don't do the purl 2, knit 2 until the next line. Also, the other end of the circular needle will be very dangly, so just be patient. like the needles we used to begin the project, this circular needle also has a width of 8 millimeters. It says that on the box when you first buy them, and then afterwards you can just kind of tell because it just feels as fat as the needles that you're using. All right, last bit's knitted. You can tie these together here. Not terribly necessary, but a good idea. Okay, now you bring the other side of the circular needle and then just do normal cast on of 10 stitches. So 1. All right, so that was the first one. Now 9 more. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, so then this is the one that belongs to the count that's part of this. Now you do the exact same thing you did before. You knit the ear flap on to the circular needle. So just normal knitting. For those big Firefly fans out there, I'm sure you noticed that Jayne's toque doesn't necessarily have triangle ear flaps, but square ones. I think the idea is that it's supposed to be a really simply made toque that his mom did for him. This is a little bit more complicated, but this is also a pattern that you can use to make any toque that you want. I'm just deciding to do it in the colors of Jayne's toque. All right, that one's a little bit loose, but we'll just knit it and then tighten it afterwards. All right, so we don't need that needle anymore. Now everything else, until we get to the crown, is going to be done with the circular needles. So we have to cast on 3 more. So now you're about ready to actually start knitting in the round. But the first thing you gotta do is make sure everything's on the right side. Or more accurately, the correct side. Because if it's twisted, your whole knitting project will be twisted. And then it just won't work, which is bad. Because we want it to work. So everything will pretty much probably be twisted anyway. So you just want to make sure everything is hanging the right way. You also want to make sure that both flaps, the knit side is facing outwards and the purl side is facing inwards. So now that we've got that all squared away, the way to knit in a circle is pretty much exactly how you thought it would be, which is instead of flipping this around and purling from the other side, you just keep knitting in a circle. So this is the end, this is your other end, and the rest of it's all on here. And then you start knitting. Because we want to have ribbing, we're going to have to go 2 knit, 2 purl, 2 knit, 2 purl. And one last thing I want to kind of fix is that I don't want the knitting yarn to be inside of the circle, so I'm just going to take it out of the circle. So now we're ready to actually start knitting in a circle. All right, so 1, see what just happened there? I just lost one of my casted on stitches and I just put it back on. Oh, almost lost another one. That's something that can happen to you a lot when you're doing circular stitching, is the stitch that you're about to knit into can slip off your needle, which just happened to me there. So clearly I have to be more careful next time. All right. Oh, no, that has to be a purl 2. All right. Now we've got to go in the correct way. All right. There'll be a long gap. Don't worry about that. That's normal. And then just, all right, so 2 purl, now 2 knit, 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 purl, purl, and keep pulling down the needle and then pushing up. That will keep you prepared and ready for the next set of stitches. So 1, 2, 1, 2, and you just keep doing that all the way around. All right, so here's the beginning of the knitting. 2 stitch, 2 purl, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to knit in 3 knit and then 3 purl. So it looks more or less like it should. And then I'm going to fix this bit of looseness here, because that came around from me not actually finishing the tying off that I should have done. But it's all fine though. And the reason why it ended up like that is because 58 divided by 2 is 29. It would have worked better if it was 56 or 60, but alas, that is not what happened. In either case, it's not that big of a problem. So just continuing, and then you can see how you just continue knitting on. With circular knitting, you don't really do any purl on the other side because it just goes all the way around. Now that you've got the ribbing as long as you want it to be, it's now time to start knitting on the lighter yellow. So you cut the orange length that came from the ball, because we're gonna knot this to some yellow. So here's our yellow. This is very, very similar to when we were in the last video making a graphic design right into our knitting. So you just knot these two together. Go. Now you've just got them knotted together. Put the knot in the back. And just start knitting like normal. Because this last step of knitting is after the ribbing. This color is after the ribbing. You just knit, you don't do any purl. And pretty much for the rest of the toque, you're just going to knit it. Like so. So I'll just show you what I've done. I've continued the yellow knitting all the way up until I start making the crown, and I've even done 2 rows of stitching on the crown. So the count for this one is also knit 2 together every 5 stitches. But because we don't purl on circular knitting, you have to skip knitting 2 together every row. So knit 2 together, then just normal knit, and then knit 2 together, and then normal knit. And now we're at the point where, having had knitting 2 together so many times, we have to start using the double pointed needles because it's too tight for how long the plastic cord is. So this is how you use double pointed needles. You have 4, so there's always yarn on 3 of them, and then you knit with the 4th one. All right, so knit 2 together. Where's the, there. Make sure you do this really tight because it can get really loose. All right. 2 and 3. And then knit 2 together. All I did there was just make the loops go in the direction I wanted them to. 2, 3, and then the last set of knitting 2 together. All right, this is the knitting 2 together. 1, 2, and 3. All right, so now we have these stitches on the double pointed needle. So we grab another double pointed needle of the 4 that we have and continue on. Right here, it can get really loose. So when you knit the 2 together, make sure you pull it pretty tight. You also always want to start a new double pointed needle on a knit 2 together because the knit 2 together is gobbling up loops, stitches from going this direction. Okay, another set of knit 2 togethers. And then one more set. Just gotta pull it a little bit like that. It's starting to get really tight. There we go. Yes, that was very tight. And then 1, 2, and 3. All right, grab another double pointed needle. Do the knit 2 together, make sure you pull it nice and tight. 1, 2, 3. And then basically the rest of these stitches are going to be knit onto this double pointed needle. this is also the end of it, and my count was off by a couple, so this is actually going to be 5, not 3. But this is just a good example of how it really doesn't have to be 100% perfect to still look good. Just as long as it's finished and you don't have any loose ends. That's very true of most things having to do with textiles. Okay. Alright, there's one of the knit 2 togethers and the other knit 2 together. Alright, there we go. Now we have 3 double point needles. We don't need the circular needles anymore, so we're going to put them over there. There. Now that was shot. So now we take the very last of our 4 double pointed knitting needles, and because this is the second row of the third one. Basically, we don't knit 2 together because on the last row we did knit 2 together. So this row we just knit like normal. But you still have to pull pretty tight at the beginning of your double pointed needle because it can get pretty loose. So just so you can kind of see what it looks like from the top. And then all the stitches that were on this double pointed knitting needle are going onto this one. Then this one will be free and you can stitch on that one. Also, it's easier if the one you're working on is like above everything else. Also, in this case, you don't have to worry too much about the yarn slipping off because the surface tension of the double pointed knitting needles keeps it there. Alright, so just keep doing that until you're at the very top of your crown, and I will show you how to tie it off, which is very, 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 very easy. So now that you're done knitting the crown, it's time to pull your thread through all the loops. I'm going to do it with a crochet hook this time because each one's separated on the double pointed knitting needle, so it's quite a bit easier to get at them with a crochet hook. So I'll just show you how I do that. Alright, so now they're all through. So all that you have to do is bring it down there, flip it inside out, and then just pull. That's it. Because it doesn't have a seam, you don't have to stitch it down. So all you have to do is just tie this off. You don't even really have to do that too badly, but it's just a good idea to do that. And the exception of finishing off the bottom, you have your circular toque. So now that we have the hat pretty much finished, the last thing that we have to do is put on the pom-pom. Before I do that though, I'm just going to show you what I did. I crocheted along the edges to make the edges more clean, and so that this is less inclined to roll up like that, though it still can do that. And I, like the other hat, I crocheted all of the loose yarns kind of going inwards so that you don't see them and they are much less likely to unravel. So this is how you make a pom-pom. First, you grab some yarn, take your scissors, and you cut a small length from it. Then you take the length that you've cut and then you hold it like this between your two fingers. And then this is kind of how I do it, is I roll the end bit over the longer of my fingers so that it doesn't come undone. For this pom-pom, we're going to use all three colors we used for this toque. So this really, really dark orange, which I'm holding between my middle finger and my ring finger. The not quite so dark orange. And then the darkish yellow. All right, so we've got all three colors. Put them like this so that they're ready to go. And then quite simply, you just start wrapping them around your finger. And you just keep doing that until you've got this huge ball of yarn wrapped around your fingers. Can take a little while. The more, the merrier in this case. You want your pom-pom to be really thick. So just keep on going. All right, so this feels about right to me for our pom-pom. You cut the yarn that goes to the yarn balls and then take your yarn balls away from your cutting area. All right, remember that thread that we wrapped around our finger? Well, you take that and you tie it around the pom-pom. Don't try as best as you can not to take it off your fingers yet. You don't want to do that quite yet. So just tie your, it doesn't have to be awesome, the knot right now, and I wouldn't tie it in a double knot yet, but it's all, you can see it's all in there. And then you take your scissors, be very careful not to cut yourself, and you start cutting. All right, it's very thick, so I'm just going to cut different layers on their own. Very, very thick, which is good because we want a thick pom-pom. Just kind of makes the cutting it along your fingers part a little hard, especially since you really don't want to cut your fingers. Not only would that be bad because you'd have cut fingers, you'd be getting blood all over your pom-pom, and then it'd be a pretty useless pom-pom. Because blood doesn't wash out very well. Oh, the things you learn. A lifetime of making costumes. Okay, my fingers are free. That means all the threads are cut. So now we've got this big mass of things, but they're all tied together because of this. So now you're going to tie it real tight. So see, it's already looking like a pom-pom. So you tie it tight, and then you tie it tight again. Don't worry too much about errant yarn getting in the way. All right, so this will be a little bit hard for me. All right, let's do it. All right. I just put it down on the desk so that I could tie the knot nice and tight. And then I'm just going to tie the knot one more time. So it's very secure. And then still kind of loose. So what you can do So you can tie it around another time. Find some loops that aren't completely cut, just cut them. So pretty much at this point, you want to find your lead off threads. Big long threads. And then from those, because these are what we're going to use to attach this to the hat later. You're going to kind of pull it like this. And then you're going to cut the pom-pom so that all the threads are relatively the same length. This is by far the messiest part. So you want to do it either over a garbage can or, like in my case, on a big old table, because then I can just wipe it into a garbage can. Actually, I normally would be doing this over a garbage can, but I wanted to show you over something that wasn't ugly. Okay, and then you kind of pull at it to make sure that you can get to more of them. And then kind of shift it around and go from the other side. Do your best to kind of try and make it as ball-like as possible. And the threads on the edge should be a little shorter than the threads in the middle. Generally, in a perfect world, it would be all the way around the same, but this is not perfect. All right, so one more trim along the edge. All right, so that starting to look a lot more like a pom-pom. All right, and yeah, it's a lot more like a pom-pom now. First, before I get my toque, I'm just going to move that a little bit out of the way. Yeah. Now, you grab your toque, you grab your crochet hook. Now you stick your crochet hook right up the middle, and then you grab one of the lead off ones that tied it together. There we go, we got one, and then you pull it through. Oh. All right, let's try that again. Stick it up real close to the middle. Try and get it on either side of the big tie off that's at the center of the crown. All right, so that's through. And now on the other side of the center, there's your crochet hook. There's your probably find this a little bit annoying because the weight of the pom-pom is going to want to fall, make itself fall out. All right, so, all right, grab them on the inside, turn it inside out. And then all you gotta do is tie it. Nice and tight. I like to put a couple knots in there. And then cut those off. And then ta-da! Your toque has a pom-pom.